Good evening and welcome to the October 11th, 2022 special meeting of the Environmental Quality Control Board. My name is Alexis Middle. I'm the Community Development Director, and I will call this meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Board Member Allen, would you like to lead us?
No.
Just start.
Where's the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item is roll call, and I will take the roll. Board Member Allen.
Here.
Board Member Wong.
Here.
Board Member Coles.
Here.
And Board Member Showalter.
Here.
All are present. The next item is approval of the agenda. At this time, staff is recommending that the board reorder the agenda so that item A, reorganization of the board, is the first item so that it happens prior to oral communications. I will call for a motion in a second.
Motion.
I'll second.
Second. And a roll call vote. Board Member Allen.
Yes.
Board Member Wong.
Yes.
Board Member Coles.
Yes.
Board Member Showalter.
Yes.
Based on reordering of the agenda that was approved, our first item tonight will be item A. This is the reorganization of the Environmental Quality Control Board. At this time, I will take nominations for a chair and a vice chair for this board.
I'd like to nominate Richard Cole for chair.
Thank you.
And I'd like to nominate Benjamin Wong for vice chair.
Can I have a motion and a second to approve those nominations?
I so move.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. And I will take the roll call vote for this as well. Excuse me. Board Member Allen.
Yes.
Board Member Wong.
Yes.
Board Member Coles.
Yes.
And Board Member Showalter.
Yes.
And with that, I will congratulate our new chair, and I'm going to be turning management of the meeting over to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for being here today. I got my cheat sheet here. At this time, members of the public may address the Environmental Quality Control Board regarding any items or subject matter jurisdiction of the board pursuant to the Brown Act. The Commission cannot discuss or take action on any items not at the agenda unless authorized by law. Those members of the public wishing to speak are asked to come forward to the microphone, state their name for the record, and all speakers will be limited to a 5-minute limit.
Starting now?
Starting now.
I'd love to talk. So can I ask, sorry, just because I just walked in, I apologize. You're all from,
Seal Beach.
no, I know, from the, which board is which part is, who's from where? Are you from Chevron, the Chevron station? GM?
No, we all live here.
We're board
Yeah, okay.
members of Seal Beach.
Okay, but who am I speaking to?
This is an appointed board, the Environmental Quality Control
Got
Board.
it.
This is staff. I'm Alexis Middle. I'm the Community Development Director. This is Art Boschmachian. He's our interim senior planner.
For the city of Seal Beach?
For the city,
But
that's correct.
is Chevron represented here?
The applicant is in the audience, yes, and there will be a staff report that's presented as a part of that item.
Okay, I'm sorry I had to ask
That's
all
okay.
that. Did I take up all my time?
No, I'll start the clock now.
I'm happy to be here. I live on 13th Street. I've lived there for 15 years. I have 2 small kids. One is right here, Nixon, and I have a 13-year-old as well. And we have seen the Chevron station for all of these years. We have homeless issues there. We have, I'm actually friendly with the nephew of the owner. He's a great guy. However, when I told him that when they had their last, they had a presentation for the neighbors to show them what they were going to plan on doing. And I took a poll of all the neighbors that were there. There were probably 50 people there, and asked if anybody in the neighborhood wanted this expansion. And everybody said, absolutely not. The neighbors don't want this. I'm going to speak for everybody, everyone in our neighborhood. And if there's anyone that I'm not speaking for, please speak up. We don't want Chevron to expand, period. We have little kids around. It's already bad enough with the riffraff that come in and out of there. The people that want this to maybe expand probably don't live on 13th Street or 14th Street. We have loud noises. We can hear the gas tank when they pull up and it beeps down the street. We hear constant commotion. I think they keep it pretty clean. We're not complaining about that. He showed me the middle aisle is where the employees sit, and they utilize that aisle for that and for a little sales area that they sell Coke or whatever. And he showed me inside there and showed how it's a tiny area for the employees. I understand that, and I appreciate that. They have a predicament. There's a little tiny toilet behind where they sit to take money and help customers. That's not our problem. Okay, he and I discussed is that middle aisle could be expanded upon. You could expand the area for the employees to sit in a larger area and expand the bathroom there, all on that middle aisle. We talked about it. That's reasonable. It's within. They could still get what they need. They still have all of the pumps that are going to work perfectly and get all of their money that they need. We don't want a mini mart. There's a 7-Eleven that is, if you lived here, you would know what I'm talking about. It is disgusting, okay, what we see coming in and out of 7-Eleven. Why would we want to block away have another mini mart with families? This is our little tiny street. So Chevron's part of our street. You know, we have to consider it as we move about in our neighborhood. And also, when people pull out of that gas station, if you're pulling out onto 13th Street, everybody turns right. It's a one-way street going this way off PCH. We already have that problem. We have lots of traffic that comes, it's a one-way street from PCH, but people use it going the opposite way because they want to get to the gas station. We have so many problems already. If you think in a million years, we're going to fight this and we're not going to let it happen. It's unacceptable to have another mini mart a block from another one, the riffraff that comes in and out. We have homeless. We take pictures of them. We send the pictures to them all the time. They're actually really nice guys down there, and they keep it really clean. That's as far as this can go, though. Build out on the middle aisle. You still get what you want. Sell some products there, whatever you need to do. If they think they're going to have a 24-hour mini mart, they got another thing coming. None of our neighbors want it. So I'm speaking for the entire city of Seal Beach. Everyone else, please speak up and back me up that wants to. Otherwise, we're going to go to, this is war for us, because this is not going to happen on our watch. It's very, very serious. We already have enough problems. Okay, we have a terrible homeless problem. Joe might think we don't. We do. We have a lot of issues in our neighborhood. This is going to add more problems so that they can make more money. Unacceptable. It's not good for the group. You do what's right for the neighborhood. He's already bought the house, 2 houses there. I know the girl that lives in one of them. He bought the house that goes against, right next to the parking lot. They rent that one out. And across the street from that, he bought that house. So he already owns, and I'm thinking he's probably going to buy up more houses, maybe. That's enough. He owns enough of our neighborhood. Okay. And God bless him. I love capitalism. Great. I'm glad he's doing well.
It's a 30-second warning.
Great. That's enough, though. I don't agree with this. I'm infuriated that it's even being considered. And I don't know why you're making faces if you're for me or against me, but we are ready to fight, just so you know, everybody. Be ready, because the neighbors don't want this. And if none of you are living on 13th Street, it's going to be hard for you to have empathy for us. Okay? So we should have somebody represented that lives on 13th Street so they can share with you what we deal with every day. Thanks for listening.
Hey, good evening. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Josh Haney. I'm at 229 13th Street. You're going to hear a lot from 13th Street today, I think. I'm hoping to give you some items for recommendation in the next step of this process. So I know that you guys aren't making a decision. You're recommending. I want to express some factual items for you to consider. So I've lived there in my house at the corner of 13th and Atlantic for 27 years. I'm invested. I'm a homeowner. I own my house outright. Many of the neighbors on the surrounding streets and PCH are opposed to this expansion plan. So that's a fact. We feel that this expansion plan does not enhance the town or have any positive benefits to the residents and neighbors this project affects. We already have 2 convenience stores. We have one at 12th and PCH, which is 7-Eleven, and then we have one at PCH and Seal Beach, which is next to the the fishing supply store. So if we add this one, we're looking at one now 12th, 13th, and 18th, or Seal Beach, just to kind of put it into proximity. There's available data on these type of markets that the number 1 profitable item is tobacco and vaping. The number 2 is alcohol. These are from the National Association of Convenience Stores. It's all literature that's easy to find. Less than 4%, or less than, in the convenience stores, in 4 minutes, 83% of the items are bought and consumed within the hour. 65% are consumed immediately. Based on these statistics, I don't see how this market will have a positive impact for Seal Beach. In 21, because we've been tracking this for a while, in 21, G&M said, hey, we're not going to sell booze or alcohol at this location. I don't know what the current status is in 22. I don't know what the plan is once the expansion, if it does happen, how easy that is to put in alcohol. We just don't know. But we really would like to stop it short. We've had a long history with G&M and how they operate their current business, and they have a lack of oversight and property, in my opinion, my humble opinion. I don't run fuel tanks. I don't run gas stations. I do something different, but this is what I see consistently. Delivery trucks blocking the sidewalk and street during the day and night. Full blockage of 13th Street happens. Full blockage of the sidewalk. We reach out to G&M. They talk to the delivery company. They change the hours, but it still happens. It's a hazard because, again, we have incoming traffic from PCH. So if you have a truck that is blocking with all of that fuel, that could be a hazard. I expressed some concern about it to G&M leadership, and they offered me a $100 gift card. I want to make sure that you guys understand it. That's the operation here. $100 gift card for your trouble. No, thank you. I declined. Spoke to Mick Gray in 20, 21, 22. Haven't heard back. It's been a while. I send photos every time I see one. Just to, hey guys, here's yet another situation. Over the years, we've had leaks from G&M into the gutters on 13th Street. It's documented. Various unknown chemicals. Stuff coming down the streets. We don't know what it is. There's G&M trucks that come around. And it's not really Chevron, so Stacey, I'm sorry to correct you, but it's G&M owns this place. One point we had 13th Street closed down, no notice, no nothing, and spray hydrogen peroxide on the street. What's going on? We could not find out what was going on. On our street, hydrogen peroxide on the street. I'm sure there's some magical reason why they did that, but we don't know why. But that's in a residential environment. There's no signage on G&M's behalf to guide customers in and out of the property, leading to the multiple wrong-way accident potentials on 13th. Remember, traffic comes into 13th. We got to exit, and a lot of people do it. We do have a city one-way sign, but that doesn't do it. There's no signage, nothing. G&M pricing is 2 to 5% higher. That's easy to find. Why are they higher for us residents? Why is the pricing higher? I go to Berry Brothers. Because the pricing is so much higher. Stacey mentioned the 2 houses. So these homes are maintained. They may be a rental, whatever. My greatest fear in the future is they'll be able to expand and they have less folks, against this process. So G&M seems to want to buy property on 13th for either, hey, maybe, whatever, but it really looks like it's, to quiet folks down. Our small one-way street cannot handle the added traffic, noise/light pollution, and general issues a convenience market brings. There are too many negative impacts with this plan. We can see the trends other markets bring: loitering, panhandling, graffiti,
30-second
and a
warning.
cadence of customers in that space. We do not need to double the negative impacts in our town with this plan. G&M says they're a good neighbor. I've heard that 1,000 times on past meetings and dialogue. They do not manage the current space using best practices. They charge the town and its customers a higher premium. They are purchasing influence in the town with the land and sponsorships. Everything in this town, there's a G&M sponsorship. It's clear. I do not see how this expansion can have a positive impact for our town. The residents of Seal Beach are very opposed to this expansion. Thank you.
So very briefly, I would mention to you that we are in receipt of about 7 comments from from the public. Those have been reviewed and by all of us here. I just wanted you to know that we do understand the issues. As we go through this discussion period, it really comes down to whether or not they're compliant with CEQA. So if we could focus our comments on whether or not it's compliant with CEQA, that would be absolutely helpful to us. Anyone else like to speak?
Good evening, council and staff. My name is Susan Perrell, and I live in Bridgeport. And I do know the oil industry very well because I spent a lot of my career in the oil industry. And I also know CEQA pretty well for an environmental engineer. So I reviewed the project proposal. I reviewed the staff's report, the negative proposal for a neg deck. And I do have a few comments, especially regarding CEQA. So I found I found the document did not adequately describe the project or its impacts, and therefore that determination of a negative declaration, a determination of no significant impacts of this project, was really hard for me to understand because there wasn't very much data to back that up. I reviewed it in detail and I saw significant potential impacts, and the document just wasn't complete for me to come to the conclusion that no EIR would be involved and that there were no significant environmental impacts. Clearly, there were concerns about soil contamination. I reviewed the geotracker site, and there's a lot left to be done to clean up the site. It can all be done, but would building and paving the site and adding more hardscape to the site impede that final cleanup? It's not clear. There's obviously noise impacts, and there wasn't enough data about the new equipment, HVAC and refrigeration units that would be in the roof adjacent to residents. There was no tech data on that equipment where we could determine or model the impacts to the residents nearby. Again, it seemed like the report was trying to convince us there would not be impacts to public services, but that's a little bit hard to swallow because we know, all of us that live in Seal Beach know that a lot of our police response is to convenience stores and grocery stores. And so we're adding another convenience store. It's hard to believe there wouldn't be impacts to police services, more response time, more response as required. So it just wasn't clear to me that there would be no significant impact to local services. Also, traffic impacts. Very little information on how traffic would flow in the newly designed gas station. And I think consistency with current laws. It just really wasn't clear to me why, if we're trying to increase density for residential housing, why we would give up a residential housing lot and put more commercial on it. So there's just a lot of things I think we need to do a little more work to make sure we're not setting the city up for a lawsuit, a CEQA lawsuit. I think we need more data and more information. And even if we have adequate studies, deem the project impacts to be not significant, and that may be when we do those studies and rewrite our report, the impacts seem to have potential to degrade the quality of life and property values for those residents nearby. So it's our hope that those negative impacts will be adequately assessed and monitored, avoided, or mitigated through this public review process. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you all for your work on this project.
Chair Coles, can I mention a few things? In light of your comments with regards to the purpose of the meeting, to speak on CEQA. I just want to explain what that is because some in the audience may understand what CEQA is, just like the last person, but many others may not. And we do have a presentation which we'll get to after the public is done with their oral comments. What's before the board is this draft document, which is called Initial Study Negative Declaration, and that is prepared in response to state law, the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA for short. And that document has addressed a number of issues and has provided responses to issues such as land use, traffic, noise, and so on. And the conclusion is that there may be some impacts, but there's no significant impacts, and therefore a draft determination is made for a negative declaration. Then this document now is up for public review, and there's a 30-day public review period. During this review period, code requires that the board conduct a meeting to further allow for additional opportunity for the public to speak on this, and the public still has opportunities to make comments after this meeting is over. The public comment period ends October 17th, but if people are late, we could accept comments later. That's not a problem. Then it's an opportunity also for the board to comment and to make observations on the document itself, and which then allows staff and the consultant to review all those comments and address them. And then the comments that the public has made in the board, together with the responses, then get forwarded to the Planning Commission and ultimately City Council. The Commission and the Council will ultimately decide on the merits of the project. At this point, it's not so much whether this is a good project or a bad project. It's strictly looking at the environmental evaluation. Was that done properly, thoroughly? If not, what's missing? We could address those through our responses. But when we have public hearings later on, maybe in December or January, we're not sure when, we will be sending out notices to property owners within 500 feet and tenants also when we select the meeting dates. At that time, the merits of the project, together with the environmental determination, will be before the Planning Commission and City Council. And that's the appropriate time to question, is the zone change appropriate? Is the conditional use permit to allow this reconstruction appropriate, aside from the environmental? So I just want to give that benefit to the public so that you understand the purpose of this particular gathering. Thank you.
So those are all great things, and I've lived here 30 years, and I truly appreciate the concern for community that we all have. And so are there any other comments?
Hi, everyone. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Tim Rathman. I live here in Old Town. My son went to McGaw. He's going to LaSalle right now. I'm a professional geologist. I'm an environmental scientist. I work with a global engineering firm called Acteon and Interact. We have a local office here just at PCH in Maine. And I was sort of felt the duty to come to this just to kind of address it. And this kind of came to me on Nextdoor. So social media is how I'll get presented. I don't know if it was somewhere here. But I sort of felt like I needed to kind of step in. I love this town. There is a bit of, this report is a little bit light. I've done a number of environmental impact reports, and it is a little bit light on technical data. So I walk around here. I am a fan of just analyzing the beach and coastal. I come from oil and gas background. Our recently is decommissioning, so trying to get rid of the platforms, but also a lot of offshore wind farms. We're doing renewable energies, and so my status is as a professional geologist is that it just kind of speak for the people. So I just wanted to express that, introduce myself. I love this town, and I want to protect it. I do feel like this report is a little bit light, and CEQA is some of the things that didn't quite get addressed. So that's all I have to say. But it's wonderful to meet all you guys, and that's it. So.
Is there anything specific or anything you found especially glaring?
So not necessarily CEQA. My main concern is the underground storage tanks. If there is a demolition, There was the occurrence over the leaky gas tank a while back. That was one of the biggest concerns of California State is underground storage tanks, and so making sure that that is addressed, even if it's demoed or if it's replaced, that is one of the biggest concerns I have. But also things like the noise, the traffic, the concern for crime, the air quality. I think that is all huge, and that is a big concern. And I will stand behind you guys for sure in this effort. So.
You say this document is light. Have you had the opportunity to review some of the technical studies?
Not yet, no.
Yeah.
So this is kind of brand new. It's all based on social. It was based on Nextdoor app, right? So somebody sends a link, and so I'm reviewing it right now. So I'd like to offer, I will review this and just offer more public concerns and public comments. And I'm happy to do that, but that's kind of what I do, and just for public benefit, basically. So I'd like to get a little bit of time, and if it's up to October 17th or something like that, I think I have time to do that. So I will submit those comments accordingly. So, but it's nice to meet everybody. You'll see me walk around town. I have a Labradoodle. I'm always walking along the beach and stuff like that. So
We'll say hello.
yeah, sounds good. So thank you for your time. Thank you as well.
Good evening. My name's Carolyn Blevins, and I purchased a home on 14th Street a couple years ago. I was very happy with my investment. I realized that the Chevron was there. The Chevron keeps us awake. I'm on 14th, and the lights, the people talking loud, the music in the cars, to me that, and I know this has nothing to do with CEQA or whatever we're talking about here, but as a homeowner, and the people that I watch walking through the different parking lots behind Sensu over to my block are quite frightening. And I've got kids, 16 and 5, that I'm raising here. And I was so happy to be here. And the Chevron's fine. I mean, but to add more of a problem with, there will be alcohol one day. I think we all kind of agree to that. There will be tobacco and the vaping and the cars and the lights at night and 2 a.m, that we just don't need it. And to take property, residential property, it's my understanding that they want to take it and turn it into commercial. Well, you give that to somebody, then when do you stop? Because somebody else down the road, well, he got to, now I want to take residential. And this is a town known for Surf City hometown, not so much commercial. That's all I want to say. I love this town. I'm happy I'm here. I don't want to see it ruined. And that seems like a good start to start a bad trend. Thank you.
So quick comment, just so you know, that noise pollution and light pollution are absolutely germane to CEQA.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else like to comment? Seeing no one, I'd like to move on to item B, consideration of the initial study neg deck prepared for conditional use permit 1907, variance 2201, zone change and general plan amendment involving demolition and existing fueling station, surface parking lot, and development of new service station, and a 1,200-foot mini market. Is there a report?
Yes, Chair. I'll start the presentation and give an overview of the project and the process. Then Bill Hodges of Hodges & Associates, the city's consultant who has prepared the initial study negative declaration, he will continue with the presentation on the environmental analysis. As was mentioned earlier, the Environmental Quality Control Board conducts a public meeting as required by our ordinance. It's an opportunity for the board to provide comments on a draft negative declaration. And also it's an opportunity for the public to make comments on the draft negative declaration. All the comments that we receive from the board and the public will be forwarded to the Planning Commission and City Council, in addition with our responses to those comments. So the project involves the demolition of the existing service station and the removal of the surface parking lot at 328 13th Street to accommodate the reconstruction of the service station, along with a new 1,200 square foot mini market. There'll be a new canopy. The dispensing islands will be reduced to 3 dispensaries from 5. There'll be 3 pump islands, will accommodate 6 cars instead of currently 10. There'll be modifications to the existing driveways, and 7 parking spaces will be provided for the mini market. The project also involves requests of variances from a number of development standards, including minimum site area, minimum required street frontage, setback from the rear property line adjacent to residential zone, distance between curb cuts, maximum driveway width, and the distance of a 1 pump island from an adjacent, from the property line that's adjacent to the alley. Just a couple of Google Street views of the existing site. And this image shows the surface parking lot that would be, that's part of the project. And it's the surface parking lot that's currently zoned residential. And the applicant's request is to change that zoning designation to commercial, along with the general plan designation, in order to accommodate the proposed plan. And it's an aerial view of the subject site. This is the proposed site plan showing the new location of the pump islands, the parking spaces, and the new mini market, which is basically located where the surface parking lot is currently. And this is just a landscape plan showing the proposed trees and ground cover, and photo simulation of the project on ground level and one from above. And just elevation drawings of the proposed mini market and a canopy. And I was just presenting that as an overview so that the board has a context what the environmental evaluation is related to. It's the project and all those components, including the conditional use permit for the reconstruction. There's also a conditional use permit to allow for the service station to operate 24 hours a day. There's no proposal for beer and wine sales, as was mentioned by members of the public. The applicant could, if assuming this project is approved ultimately, the applicant would have to go through a conditional use permit in order to request allowance of beer and wine sales. And that would have to go through Planning Commission, public hearings, if the applicant decides to do that in the future.
Very quickly, what are the proposed hours of operation?
At this time, it's 24 hours.
For the mini mart as well as
For the mini mart also. But again, this is a subject matter more related to the conditional use permit. But I would say that is a matter that the city is evaluating and talking to the applicant. At the end of the day, staff hasn't reached that point with regards to the final analysis of the application itself. We're still in the environmental phase, but we will then formulate our recommendation, and it's possible that our recommendation could be against operating the mini market 24 hours a day. So but that's coming later.
We have a couple of comments.
Could you go back to where you went really quick on that, where they showed the mini mart? Is that a house literally right behind where that store is going to be?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. There's.
Showed that guy's house, right?
Well, he owns it.
You went through that really quick.
G&M owns the house.
Okay.
That was the plan. They bought it.
Okay.
And so now I will.
Chair, if you would like to go back on the agenda to public comments or
Yeah,
have
we
another
can
public
reopen-
comment
We
period?
can
that might
certainly
be more
reopen
appropriate?
public comments. Let's go back and do that.
Would you like to see the rest of the presentation
Because
first?
If you don't mind, let's finish the presentation, and if there's additional comments, we'll open it back up and be happy to hear those.
So next few slides, I will pass this over to, as I mentioned earlier, to Bill Hodges, who will do an overview of an initial study and the findings of the negative declaration.
Good evening, members of the Environmental Quality Control Board. My name is Bill Hodge. I'm with Hodge & Associates. We've been in business since 1991, doing environmental documents ranging from exemptions all the way up to full-blown environmental impact reports. The document before you tonight is a negative declaration. It would, by its very nature, not be as extensive as a full-blown environmental impact report. Environmental impact reports can range up to, 400 or 500 pages even. And the idea is to conduct an environmental assessment of the project. And this all goes to providing information to the City Council, the Planning Commission, and boards such as yourselves in terms of the nature of the project and the potential environmental impacts that have been identified. They present factual project information for the appropriate environmental determination, and it enables the project modification if significant effects are identified. And I kind of want to emphasize significant effects because in CEQA, it's significant effects that trigger the higher level, the environmental impact report type document. In the initial, in the initial study, if there are no significant effects identified, that would tend to lead you to conclude that it would be a negative declaration because there weren't any effects identified that would require mitigation measures to protect or to keep the project from having a negative impact. Okay, I see. Okay, just to go over the environmental effects that were analyzed in the document. And in CEQA, the CEQA checklist has 20 different subject areas that are all evaluated to a lesser or greater degree in the process of preparing an initial study. In the case of this project, I'm just going to go over the 4 ones that we felt were probably the most, would draw the most attention in terms of this project. First one, the traffic impacts. There was a traffic memorandum generated by Kimley Horn, traffic engineering firm, and they looked at the proposed plan for the property with the 1,200 square foot mini mart and the reduction in filling station islands, and compared that to what would be generated from the current use, which has a significant, more fueling stations, and determined that there would be a reduction of 688 fewer trips as a result of the new plan, and that included 16 fewer trips in the what we call the morning peak hour, which is typically from say 6 to 8, 6 to 9, and then 34 fewer trips in the PM peak, usually around rush hour in the evening. And then in the air quality area, I know some of the folks here tonight have mentioned concerns about air quality. Air quality is very significant, and the air quality study was done for the project to determine the impacts that would happen from construction, from operations of the project, and also analyze the risk from vapors that occur during potentially the fueling of the vehicles. And in the case of construction activities, the study showed that dust emissions did not exceed levels with certain measures that can be taken, like watering down the dirt and adjusting exhaust on the trucks. There's typically these kinds of things are done during when a project is built to eliminate those kind of effects. Then in project operations would not exceed the significance thresholds established in the air quality management plan and would not undo the progress we're making in terms of the air quality management plan and improving the air quality in the Southern California basin. The project would not result in significant impacts cumulatively through air quality, and also the vapor risk is significantly under the health thresholds for creating a significant impact. I just want to add that, well, maybe I can do it actually under the next slide. Hazardous materials. This is another area that is looked at particularly in projects where there is some handling of hazardous materials. Gasoline is considered a hazardous material. And just noting that, you know, project delivery is heavily regulated. There are a number of agencies who monitor the trucks that pull in there and dispense gasoline, fill the tanks, that sort of thing. It was mentioned the remediation of the underground storage tanks, replacing the underground storage tanks. There are many agencies involved in that process. The state of California has a significant presence through the Regional Water Quality Control Board, the Orange County Healthcare Agency, Environmental Health. They're kind of the project manager on the ground here. They go out and make sure that the monitoring wells are functioning properly and that the remediation is taking place and that things aren't escaping into the atmosphere. The Air Quality Management District also is on the site very frequently, measuring any air emissions that might escape from those remediation activities. So it's a highly regulated environment. And usually, they look at before demolishing the pumps, they look at identifying hazards and ameliorating those before they can become a problem. And the project follows these measures to reduce impact from construction activities. For example, when there's construction going on, there's typically the storage of motor oils, fuels, and that sort of thing that can potentially be, upset and create a spill. And there are measures that are implemented through state law and conditioning of the project that make those a remote possibility that would ever happen and plan for them. We also looked at noise. We did a noise study. I should have mentioned the air quality study was done by Jerome Associates. We also did a noise study that Jerome Associates did. The project noise levels do not exceed the city standards. That was established. They went out and had some noise monitoring on the site and projected what the noise impacts would be from the predicted traffic levels. Also, the construction issues are limited by city ordinance. They restrict the hours from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. weekdays. Start time on Saturday is later from 8 a.m. and then they don't allow construction on Sundays. So the city ordinance has some things to try and ameliorate those impacts. I apologize. I'm going through it here on my computer, and
Hazardous materials and noise. Is that you just covered that?
the next steps is the next one. Okay, then for next steps, as you can see, as Art mentioned, we'll be receiving public comments through October 17th, and it sounds like the city is receptive to considering public comments that maybe come in after that deadline, and that we would be responding to those public comments and also comments from the Environmental Quality Control Board, and that those responses would be transmitted to both the Planning Commission and the City Council as they go through their deliberations on this project. So those are the next steps, and I think it's a fairly exhaustive schedule that allows for plenty of public input and a lot of discussion on some of the issues you've raised tonight.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'd like to reopen for additional comments.
Hello, my name's Matt Terry. I live on 13th Street, And I wanted to talk regarding the traffic impacts. I don't know if you're all familiar, everybody's kind of mentioned already. 13th Street is a one-way street. The site actually already kind of has negative traffic impacts as is, because there's a curb cut on 13th Street that allows people to go the wrong way down 13th Street. And it's not very wide. And so whenever, you'd be surprised how many times this happens. But there's so many times where you try to turn on your street and you can't because there's a car going the wrong way. And I mean, sometimes it's not too big of a deal, but sometimes people try to turn the wrong way down 13th Street onto PCH left. And as you know, you might notice there is a opening in the island there for people to turn left from PCH onto 13th Street, but there's not a wide enough opening for the cars to pass. So basically you're at an impasse then, because this car wants to go here, this car wants to go here, but neither can actually pass each other. And so the one thing I just want to mention, obviously I'm opposed to this just like everybody else, but if you do, as this kind of pushes forward, I would just recommend removing the curb cut on 13th Street from the site plan, because there's no amount of signs that you could put up there to tell people to stop turning down our street the wrong way. And it's just going to keep on happening. And so if they're going to really take the time to build this and all this stuff, all I'd say is just at least remove that curb cut there, so then people stop going down our street the wrong way.
The wrong way traffic, is that left turners out of the gas station?
Yeah, can you bring up the site plan by any chance?
It's not people coming up from landing.
So basically, yeah, you'd be surprised how many people come through here and then just sit right here. And basically, like, you try to turn here legally, but you can't because there's cars parked just sitting right here. And sometimes the cars want to go this way, sometimes they want to go this way. The worst is when they want to go this way because, like I said, this is only wide enough for one car. So basically, this car can't go this way, this car can't go this way. So you're just sitting there until this person realizes they're going the wrong way, and then they just like, then they go that way. So all I'd say is just some feedback. I think I'm assuming that might be a part of like an operations type thing for that site, but they have curb cuts on PCH. They have entrances through the alley. They don't need a curb cut on 13th Street, and it would make my life a lot better, not have to deal with so many cars going down the street the wrong way.
But there's no wrong way traffic coming up from landing.
Oh, from landing? You mean
Yeah.
like past it?
Yeah, coming up from Landing Avenue or street.
Yeah, actually, there's a lot of cars that do go down our streets the wrong way. and the worst part is that once they realize it, then they start speeding up.
Okay.
And because they want to get out of it as soon as possible, but then it makes it even worse. But the problem too is our street is almost like, if you've never lived on the street, you won't know what I'm talking about. But because our street is right before 12th Street, our street becomes like I don't want to sit in the left turn lane, so I'm just going to turn on 13th Street anyway. So basically, our becomes like a little side street for people to just zoom through. So we already get enough traffic as is.
I'm sorry, I do that all the time.
Yeah, well, the problem is that people then they just speed down like they would 12th Street. I've seen cats get killed from people doing that, and then people don't stop at landing either. They just go, and so it really is very frustrating the way that street's already laid out. But I would say just that curb cut. Just if you could at least get rid of that, that would at least make it a little bit more tolerable.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Wright. I didn't plan on coming up here, but the gentleman over here kind of jogged my thoughts a little bit. And after listening to this guy, you say there's 7 parking places there, but in reality, there are not, because you have a person running the gas station and you have one of your employees or whoever running the mini mart. That's minimum. One on the gas station, but the mini mart. So you have 2 people. So where are they parking? Okay, so they're either going to park down 13th or 14th Street where it's already congested and already crowded. And a lot of those homes there have single garages. So, and there's 2 adults or maybe a teenager that drives. So they are probably parking 2 cars out on the street or maybe one behind their garage. And now you have your employees possibly, they're either going to park in one of your 7 spots, which in reality is only 5. Then you have a shift change. The next group of people that have to come in and work at 8 hours, because you say you're going to be open 24. So you're going to have 3 shift changes if they're going to work 8-hour shifts. And so now that 7 parking places is down to maybe 3, 4 tops. Or they're going to park on the street. And if they are parking on the street, or if they're parking in your parking lot, let's just say they're in your lot, then where are the customers going to go? And you know, sometimes when it's kind of like around 5 o'clock or so, there's a lot of people in and out. And the other issue, I'm sure it was addressed, I was like, we just have one a block and a half away. Why do we need another one? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. I have a really important question. Oh. Can I just ask a quick question about Mr. Hodges? Is it Mr. Hodges? Can I ask who hired your company to do the environmental impact study?
I'm sorry?
Who hired your company to do
The city.
The city? Do we have another opinion coming in for this? I just think it's important, like, to gather opinions on this. Do you?
We're gathering opinions now.
Well, I mean,
That's
not
part
only
of-
from this, but I'm not an expert, so I'm saying like another expert to offer an opinion, an environmental study as well.
Some of us are.
Okay. And yeah, I'm sure you are. And then if you're anticipating having less visits, right, and less traffic with a mini mart, that would mean less money. That seems like it wouldn't be a great business decision for them to have a mini mart if they're having less visits. It just was kind of an interesting thought. But I'm glad to hear that. I know that you're all experts, and I appreciate you so much, because I'm not, but I certainly am concerned, as you can tell. And I'm going to sit down.
Thanks.
Hello, my name's Kim Kelly, and I do not live on 13th Street or 14th Street, but I am a 30-year resident of Seal Beach. I own a business in town, and I am a real estate broker, have been for 30 years. And I do know, I can't get into the technicality of all the negative impact as it gets real specific, but I can tell you that it will have a negative impact on home values. It absolutely 100% will. There will be people loitering with those 6 parking lot, and maybe just the 3 is even better, but with those parking spots, you're going to have people sitting there and loitering. We get all kinds of people passing up and down Pacific Coast Highway at all hours of the day and night. So just imagine who's going to be stopping in there thinking that after they've been out at a night of partying to pick up some alcohol or snacks, sitting in the cars. Those 2 little girls that were sitting there are within eyesight of that gas station. It is already a concern that they can see them playing in their front yard, but now who's going to be there? That many more people. I can also tell you that there are a lot of people, not just on 13th and 14th, but up on the hill, across the street, in the coves that back up, that are also concerned. And they will all show up at these meetings. It isn't just 13th and 14th. I live far away from it, but I do frequent that gas station. Will I in the future? I don't know. I don't know what kind of an element it's going to bring. I do know the other 2 liquor stores that we have, the 7-Eleven, does not face any homes. Allowing this gas station, and they own dozens, maybe hundreds, perhaps they can put a mini mart in one of their other stations that doesn't encroach into the neighborhood, because what they're asking is to encroach into the neighborhood. That lot that they bought behind the gas station was for this purpose down the line. They did it, long ago, knowing that at some point they wanted to do this. That when they move that gas station back into that lot, it's going to be directly across the street from residential homes. It isn't necessary. We already have, as the city knows, a housing issue. So allowing them to do that and setting a precedent, and that is what it's going to do, because you allow them to rezone a residential lot commercial. Now you have another little down the street, there's a auto repair. Maybe he wants to build back and expand. Now you've set a precedent. Why can't he do it? We've allowed him to do it. if it was something that, if it's a park, if it's a playground, if it's something that's really going to add to the community and be a huge benefit, I can see a CUP for that. But why would we even give them a CUP for this? There's no benefit here. It's all negative. I mean, negative impact noise to the neighborhood, negative impact in safety, negative impact in traffic to the neighborhood, and negative impact in increasing homeless issues, negative impact in adding more police calls, which they don't have time to, a negative impact with extra parking spots, allowing people to sit and loiter and drink and smoke and watch the kids playing in the neighborhood. And that, again, a negative impact in setting a precedence and rezoning a lot from residence to commercial allows anybody else in town to do that behind many other homes. This is encroaching into the neighborhood. That should be the one thing that stops it. I mean, environmental and all this other stuff, but allowing them to take a lot that is across the street from residential homes where people sleep, play, kids play, they're going to be up all night with more noise. I mean, there's a lot of negatives here, a lot. Thank you. And I appreciate all your time. I know you guys are not being paid well. You're all volunteers, I'm sure. So thanks so much.
Any other comments? So I'd like to make a quick comment. I want to thank all of you for being here this evening, sharing your thoughts, your comments about the wonderful city that we live in. So with that,
Mr. Chairman, I think there's another person in the audience who'd like to make a...
Anyone else? Please. I'm sorry. I didn't see you. You got to get that hand up there.
My name's Jessie. I live on 14th Street. I don't know if this is included in traffic, like when you're taking into account, but I have only lived here a year. I run a lot and I love to walk. And one of my favorite things about Seal Beach is it's walkable. So I know like it's already kind of dangerous when I'm walking from my house to Pavilions or if I'm trying to get to Main Street. So just kind of, I'm wondering if you take that into account too, because there are so many pedestrians and cyclists in Seal Beach. Is that taken into account when you're looking at traffic like damage or negativity?
Well, there wasn't a full-blown traffic study done on this project because the numbers and the traffic memorandum said that it would actually be a reduction from what's happening right now.
A reduction based on the less gas pumps, but they're not including like new people into the mini mart, or what are they taking into account on that, I guess?
It's based on the configuration of the existing gas station, which would be probably the increase, the larger number of pumps.
Okay.
And it's based on the traffic engineer's manual, which has a breakdown of uses and how they equate to traffic generation. And basically they take the elements of the current project and they come up with the traffic. They take the elements of the new project and they come up with the traffic, and then they try to compare. Are they less, greater, that sort of thing.
So it's based on the less pumps.
So let me share with you. Typically, when we look at a traffic study, they have individuals actually go out and count it. So when we did the 24-hour fitness, we actually did a thorough analysis, a traffic study for that very reason.
Okay.
And so this, because it's currently proposed as a negative declaration, I don't believe they did that. Am I correct?
I believe they did.
So.
Okay.
So that's typically what occurs when we look at these kinds of developments. So I want to thank you for your comments.
Okay, yeah. I agree with everyone. I just didn't know if like pedestrian traffic was included.
Good question.
So I guess at this point, get my cheat sheet here. Is the applicant present? And would you like to make a presentation?
Honorable Chair, members of the board, my name is Carl Hoy with Travis Companies, here on behalf of, excuse me, G&M Oil. No presentation per se, sir. We understand what tonight's meeting's for, to gather public comment, which will be transferred and responded to by the planning staff, and then transferred to or submitted to the Planning Commission and to City Council. We fully understand that. In the form of a presentation, no, we have the project before you. We've been we've had the pleasure of working with the planning staff for many years here on this project, and we have been taking notes on the comments. A lot of the comments are addressed in the design of the project and what will happen with several of the comments relative to the environmental components, such as the tanks. All of those items will be taken care of with the project and through the safeguards and the over regulations, if you will. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the board? Any thoughts and comments on what we've heard today?
Well, I have some comments, not on what we've heard today, but comments of my own from reading the negative declaration. Is it appropriate to make those now?
Speak into this.
Yeah.
So everybody can hear you.
Yeah. Is it appropriate to make comments now?
We're making comments now? Yes, we are.
Okay. Well, I'd first like to look at aesthetics. Page 6 of the negative declaration, there is a light for the mini market area. Could we put the I meant to cite, yeah, okay, that's good. That was good. That was okay. Yeah, there is a light that is proposed for the project, and it's how do I describe this? It's next to the rightmost car in the mini market parking lot. If I'm correct on that. Is that right, Art?
Let me check the site plan. If it's hard to read the site plan, but there may be a light pole for the parking lot.
I'd like to know how close exactly that is. My eyesight's not as good as it used to be, so I couldn't really make out how far that light standard is to the nearest residential area unit. So it looks like it's fairly close from what I could judge, about maybe around 45, 50 feet. Now, the negative declaration says there's no significant impact related to that, but I wonder if the residents would agree with that. So I'd like to know if there's any mitigation that's planned for that particular part of the plan.
All lighting that takes place with this or any other project must comply with the city's lighting standards.
Okay. All right, next, I want to talk about traffic trip generation as it pertains to air quality, noise, and transportation. Those occur on pages 14, 32, and 42 of the negative declaration. The negative declaration assumes that the daily trips are 1,720, and as was mentioned earlier, that's not due to an actual count on site, but based upon generation rates by the Institute of Traffic Engineers. So also for the project, calculated by that means it turns out to be 1,032. Now, that's the Institute of Traffic Engineers factor that's used there is 172.01 daily trips for each fueling position when the land use contains an associated convenience store of less than 2,000 square feet. Now, I looked at some research on that, and there is an organization called the Community and Environmental Defense Services who have done significant studies on convenience stores around the country, and they have slightly different, well, I wouldn't say slightly, fairly substantial difference in trip generation rates. They say, based on their studies, that there's 100 to 130 trips per fueling station, and 800 to 1,200 trips per day for each 1,000 square feet of a convenience market. So that implies that the trip generation for the project could be really much higher than what the negative declaration assumes. It could be, as far as I calculated, it could be even 100% higher than calculated by the negative declaration. Okay, let's see. The negative declaration also postulates that trip generation will be less because of the fewer fueling stations. Now, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I kind of wonder if that's true, because it seems to me that the traffic bypassing on PCH is not going to change, and the people who are regularly filling up their gas station or their gas needs for their car at that station are probably going to go back, reinstitute filling up at that station when the new project is in place. Oh, one last thing on that particular issue. Could you or somebody clarify for me the pass-by theory?
I think that's something that's in the traffic memorandum. I'm not a traffic engineer either. I'm relying on that memorandum, so I couldn't really.
So I did see that, and that's typically done when you have a non-full CEQA document without having a true traffic analysis, and it's passed by, and I'll discuss that in a few moments.
Commissioner Allen, if there's a concern you would like to express related to that, that would be helpful for the record.
Okay, I would like to understand that a little bit better, and I would think that most lay readers like myself would be a little bit confused by that particular concept.
And as I mentioned earlier, all the comments that we receive, we will be responding, and we may need to add additional language to the documents and clarify and so on. But with regards to the pass-by, again, I'm not a traffic engineer also, okay. But the idea is the trip generation, when you have a use, there are uses that because of that particular use, it draws people. I mean, I'm going to give an example. Disneyland is not passed by. People go, so all the traffic is because of this unique use or an activity. People are driving. That's generating all these trips. A pass-by is where you already have these trips passing by. You're going by. They're not being generated, but now you have a service station. They'll stop at that location and obtain fuel and continue on, versus people going out of their way to come to that location because it has a unique thing. So there's that difference.
Okay.
If that helps.
All right, thanks. Thank you. Moving on to cultural resources, page 18. The negative declaration says that archaeological resources are not affected because there is no new grading, but the underground storage tanks are to be replaced as a part of the project. So is there not a potential there for some impact on archaeological resources? And if so, is there any sort of mitigation that's associated with that?
At this point, Board Member Allen, I think we're just looking for your comments for us to be able to provide any clarifications.
Okay. All right. Hazardous Materials, page 25. I'd like to understand what the logic behind the negative declaration statement of less than significant impact, simply because there are other sites in the area that have been remediated or are currently undergoing remediation. Okay. Noise, page 32. The ordinance, city's ordinance says that the LEQ 30 standard is 65 dBA, which is acceptable, with maximum deviations of up to 20 dBA. Now, as Mr. Hodge said, there was a measurement study done of LAQ 15 measurements, which showed 65 and 64 dBA for the two measurement sites. And there were maximum deviations during those measurement periods of up to 81 and up to 72 dBA at those two locations. All right. The negative declaration also says that the project noise will be less because that there are going to be fewer daily trips, and that there are barriers, ergo the convenience store and the 8-foot wall, but there's no quantification of what the reduction effect of those barriers might be. That's usually a simple calculation that could be made. Okay, public services, page 41. Police protection. The negative deck says no impact, but is it not true that convenience stores can cause an increase in crime? Studies by that Community and Environmental Defense Services company that I mentioned earlier show that there is an increase in crime if the stores are open 24/7, and if they sell alcoholic beverages, which I guess that's in question right now. By the way, those studies by that organization show that convenience store robberies account for 6% of robberies nationwide, so it stands to reason that there's going to be some activity at that convenience store, which are going to require more police services. I believe, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for right now.
Thank you so much for your comments. Ben?
Sure. Mr. Hodge, I was wondering if we could seek some additional clarification again, going back to that statistic you had about 688 less stops, the projection. Can you go, if you mind, if you would entertain discussing how you came to that number again?
I didn't come to that number. It was the traffic consultant.
The traffic consultant did.
Yeah.
And how did they, what kind of a sample size was that based upon?
It's based upon, as I read the report, the comparison of the new proposed layout of the filling station versus the existing one, that when you extrapolate those numbers using the multipliers that Mr. Allen referred to,
Sure.
You get two numbers, and the one under the proposed use is an average of 688 less a day.
I see. So it's a general estimate right now. Okay.
It's out of a manual.
Out of a manual. Okay. Will there be, do you know if if this does move forward, will there be a counting, an on-site counting, or a more thorough investigation to how many stops potentially it could be?
Well, I think part of this process is to hear what people's feedback is and what
Sure.
they think should be done. And that'll be considered, I think, by the staff in terms of deciding what to recommend.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Another question. Back in late 2020, early 2021, there was a proposal that came through the commission about on the corner on, was it Fifth Street, 5th and PCH. I think it was 790 PCH, and it was going to be for a 2,400 square foot convenience store. Is that still in development currently?
490?
Yeah.
Is that-
I had 790. Excuse me, 490 PCH and 5th.
Okay.
It's the old ARCO site.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the clarification. There has been no movement on that project at this time.
Okay. I see. Okay. Then I have no further comments or questions at this point.
Catherine, any comments?
Yes, I have just four different things I'd like to say. One is that the variances from the standards, there's so many of them that it seems like the project might be just too big for the property. That's just a comment, it's a concern. It has to do with CEQA because of some of the issues with the traffic and the noise, the air pollution. I'm wondering what the project would look like if it was designed respecting the city standards and meeting the required space limitations. And was that an option offered with the proposal? That's just a question and a comment. The second thing I have is that also in 2009 from the staff report, it's mentioned that the same applicant was proposed, the same applicant with the project was proposed, and the application was withdrawn. So my question, or the area of consideration that I would like at least to think about, is what are the concerns that were previously voiced by the community, and were those concerns addressed in this project? Number 3, in addition to the trip discussion, because it doesn't seem logical to me either, that there would be fewer miles traveled on PCH when it's not going to impact that traffic as a bypass. But also it's mentioned on page 19, it says, in fact, the new gas station will provide a dedicated pump island for biofuels as an alternative to standard gasoline. I'm wondering what that is, if that's an EV charging station or just what it is. It's very general in that regard. And then my last comment is that regarding schools on page 41, the comment, the project will not increase students in the area. I understand that it's not going to affect the number of students at school, but what I don't understand is knowing mini markets attract middle school and high school students for snacks and gatherings. How is it that that can be stated? If indeed there would be students, then it becomes a safety issue. Bike racks might be necessary. One just cannot assume that the number of students in the project area will not increase. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Catherine. So I have a few comments as well. And I'd like to start out with the adequacy of the subconsultant documents that you presented in your document. As I read through how they collected the data, they had one metering point. They didn't indicate what times of day they collected the noise data, which is disturbing because we have people that live in that neighborhood that really want to know what is the ambient noise level at night, during the day, and so on, that it is not addressed in this document. Furthermore, the noise data suggests that there was interference. And so true background levels, I don't think, are indicated in the subconsultant document you presented. Next, I'd like to talk about light. So light is an issue that keeps us all awake. And so the analysis that was performed on the light aspects and light pollution that's a cause and how it affects the neighborhood needs to be thoroughly analyzed. The air quality analysis that was done used McGaw Elementary School as a receptor to calculate your 1 in a million response to air quality, both PM10 and other compounds. So I would recommend that be redone and have a better analysis on the receptors in the community. We have a diurnal shift of wind in our town. We live by the beach. And so that diurnal shift, it's unlikely that the gas station is going to impact McGaw School, but it will impact people that live in the neighborhood. And I think that needs to be given some serious consideration. So we talked about noise, traffic. I share with my fellow board members, if I'm a business person, how on earth am I going to build a mini mart and assume that there are fewer trips? Absolutely doesn't make sense. That needs to be addressed. So, I mean, I wouldn't invest in something like that. I don't think the public would either. Exactly. So I think that needs to be taken a close look at. Then as a non-sequel comment, we have other environmental engineers in our audience. And when you do, first of all, in GeoTracker, that site has never been clearly delineated. There is no remedial action plan associated with it. And I think before you start remodeling and demolishing things, you need to better understand what you're going to do with the future use of the property. Just as a comment. Secondly, benzene is a known human carcinogen. And in my opinion, when you excavate contaminated soils, you will likely have significant impacts to the surrounding community. So that's just a comment, not necessarily CEQA-based. Any other thoughts? Comments? All right.
I did have one for the convenience store. I understand they're proposing for it to be open for 24 hours. Is there any thought of it not being 24 hours, closing earlier?
Excuse me, as I mentioned earlier, that matter is being evaluated by staff, and that would be also part of the overall evaluation with regards to the conditional use permit. There are required findings, looking at compatibility. The hours of operation would fit into that analysis.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, Art, are there any other thoughts or comments, or what are our next steps?
So the next steps, we have taken all the comments. We actually are recording this so that we have an accurate memory of the comments, so that we could prepare appropriate responses and do the appropriate analysis. And we may need to do additional studies if appropriate, and so on. So we're going to do that in the next month or so. And there is still additional time for the public to make comments. The 30-day review period, the comment period, I should say, ends on Monday, the 17th. As I mentioned, if some individuals are late with their comments, we'll accept them. That's fine. Then once
probably stipulate not too late.
Not too, yes, thank you. Maybe an extra week. How's that? Then we will put the comments together. The environmental analysis, the negative declaration, and related documents and additional documents that we may need to provide, and additional analysis as a result of the comments that we received tonight and will continue to receive. That'll go together with the analysis of the merits of the project. As I mentioned earlier, so there's the conditional use permit for the actual reconstruction. There's the variances. We have to analyze. There are required findings to make. There has to be justification why the variances are necessary, or maybe there aren't in all cases. There's also the zone change. So these things are kind of parallel. Part of the process is with regards to the project and its appropriateness. This project is not exempt from CEQA, and therefore we needed to do this environmental analysis. They're kind of going parallel. And the purpose of the CEQA is to make sure that the decision makers fully understand what the potential environmental impacts could be before they make a decision on a project. This project could have been exempt if the Orange County Healthcare Agency and the Regional Water Control Board had already closed remediation, and if it was off the geo-tracker, and if this project did not involve a zone change, for example, same project would have been exempt from CEQA. But because there's a zone change involved, general plan, and also it's still an active remediation project, it's subject to CEQA.
So once you're on GeoTracker, you never get off?
You know, well, eventually you'll be closed, and you do get off that. But from my review, I know they're very close to finishing the remediation process. But again, our documentation, I think from what I've heard, I recognize that we need to add additional language and a little bit more background, definitely, in the CEQA document. And it's all about, again, transparency and disclosure. Maybe at the end of the day, we might still have the same finding of negative declaration, but we may have a more robust analysis for the benefit of the decision makers and the public.
Alexa, do you have any thoughts or comments?
No, nothing further. I think this has been a very productive meeting, and I welcome additional comments to come to us via email for the next week and a half through the extra week, and look forward to working with our consultant to make sure that we are producing a document worthy of review for the Planning Commission. And as Art mentioned, everything is being recorded. This will be transcribed, and all comments will be provided to the decision-making bodies going forward.
Any other thoughts or comments from our board members?
maybe just one, and that is just a thank you to those who came tonight and gave testimony and that are here in the room, because what you've presented are issues that address multifaceted parts of this project, and some of which we have commented on, some of which you may have kind of jolted something else as far as an issue or an idea, either from us or from another person sitting close to you. So your comments are very welcome, and we look forward to receiving them.
And I second that. And so I guess we've come to the end of our meeting, and it's so adjourned.